Today I'm going to give away a free t-shirt, bring you a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, bring you comics news, and reveal the books I bought this week. How y'all doing? I'm Victor, and you are watching a Comic Hero show. Now kick that intro! Welcome to this week's edition of the Comic Hero Show. I'm your host Victor Nunley, and I am the Comic Hero. The summer of superheroes continues, and on this episode, I'm paying tribute to the first and one of the greatest sidekicks of all time, the boy wonder himself, Robin. And this is a Robin Comic Hero tee, and inside the speech bubble you have the Robins, or the whole flock of Robins rather. And then on the sleeves, I have the R logo that represents the original Robin, Dick Grayson. And to go along with it, this Tim Drake Robin hat. Now, Robin is one of my favorite comic book characters. And I'm not just saying that in terms of sidekicks, because every Robin, for the most part, has been able to hold their own. They didn't always need Batman. And all the characters that have taken on the mantle of Robin, of course, I said before, Dick Grayson, then it was Jason Todd, then it was Tim Drake. At one point, it was, spoiler, Stephanie Brown, and now it's current Robin, Damian Wayne. And out of continuity, Carrie Kelly from the Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller has also been a Robin. So if you're a Robin fan, this episode is for you. Now, speaking of Robin, on this episode and next week's episode, the free tee questions of the week are going to be Robin questions. And speaking of free tees, it's time to give away a free t-shirt. Alright, on last week's episode, I asked, what is Plastic Man's real name? Well, the correct answer is Patrick Eel O'Brien. And 8 people have answered correctly, and because they've answered correctly, their names have been entered in a drawing for a free tee, and their drawing takes place right now. So the winner of the free tee for this week's episode of the show is Manarog. Now, this is someone who answered directly from YouTube. So congratulations, you win yourself a free comic hero tee. Alright, here's the question for next week's episode, and as I said at the beginning, this is a Robin question. This is the first of 2. True or false? Fans voted to kill off the Jason Todd Robin in a classic Batman story arc, A Death in the Family, in 1988. Everyone who answers correctly been in a drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. Alright, now D'Angelo Ballou from Warren, Ohio has requested a Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown fight, and this one features 2 animalistic characters, one in the comics, going up against one in the video games. Or from the video games, rather. Represent Marvel, we have Beast. And represent Mortal Kombat, we have Kintaro. These 2 are going to duke it out in a segment I like to call
The Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown.
Welcome to the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Today, it's Beast versus Kintaro. Beast possesses genius-level intellect, animal-like physiology with enhanced physical attributes, and sharp claws and teeth. Kintaro possesses superhuman strength, superhuman endurance, pyrokinesis, enhanced jumping, longevity, an extra pair of arms, and is a master martial artist. Who would win? Brain versus brawn would be the theme for a majority of this fight. It's no secret that Beast would do his homework on Kintaro. The 2 would jump at each other, but Beast would have the upper hand due to his acrobatic prowess. As a result, he elbows Kintaro in the back of his neck. Kintaro then returns with a vicious uppercut. Kintaro, via pyrokinesis, singes Beast alive with a fireball. He then hears the words, "Finish him." He grabs Beast and begins to crush him with all four arms. Just as Kentaro thinks he has the fight won, Beast goes into an invertible berserker rage. He headbutts Kentaro in the chin, rips off his extra set of arms, and delivers a vicious dropkick to the heart. Beast wins, and that concludes this fight on the Comic Hero Throwdown Showdown. Thank you, D'Angelo Ballou, for that fight request. I hope y'all enjoyed it, and I'll have another one for next week. Now it's time for Comically Speaking, so without further ado, let's talk comics! Alright, there are two things I'm going to talk about in this segment of Comically Speaking, and here's the first. Now, the Green Lantern 80th Anniversary Special, which is due to come out in about a few weeks, there's a story that's written by Jeff Johns. And in it, the Hal Jordan Green Lantern is somewhere lost in space, and his power ring's about to die. And unfortunately, he doesn't have his power battery with him. So he ends up thinking that he's not going to survive. He leaves 3 messages with 3 people. One with Carol Ferris, who was his love interest. One with the Green Lantern Corps, and one with Batman. Now, he reveals a secret to Batman that he's never revealed before. He tells Batman that he had to prove himself over and over again as if he wasn't good enough to wield his power ring. And then he also goes on and says that he was always envious of Batman's confidence in his own heroics. And then he ended it by saying that by thanking Batman for teaching him humility and worries that he would have remained parallax without him. Now, back in the throughout most of the 90s, you're probably wondering why Hal Jordan had the grain temples and all that. Well, that was only because at the turn of the century, or the turn of the decade, when the 80s became the 90s rather, he was infected with parallax, which is of course the entity of fear, which of course is like the entity that Sinestro originally wielded off of after he went rogue. And then he becomes parallax. He ends up killing the entire Green Lantern Corps, and he kills all the Guardians except Ganthet. And in a story arc in the late 90s, while Kyle Rayner was still on top was the only Green Lantern, well, he goes off and tries to finish what he starts by killing off both Ganthet and Kyle, but fails, and also ends up getting killed himself. And Batman, he's like he knows how to instill fear in folks, and I guess Hal learned through Batman that not to fear anything. So, and Batman is one of the most, even though he's a jerk at times, and he has more secrets than most government officials, both real and fiction. There's a lot of characters respect the heck out of him, and Hal is one of them. So, alright, and then the second thing is that actress and singer-songwriter Janelle Monáe wants to play Storm in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now about this, I'm not going to say yeah. I'm going to say heck yeah! I mean, this woman, she is one of those very few recording artists who also has great chops when it comes to acting. I mean, I loved her role in the movie Hidden Figures, and for her to want to play Storm, and with apologies to Dwayne Johnson, Marvel Studios, know your role and cast this woman now. Better yet, cast this woman yesterday. I think she will deliver as Storm. No, I know she'll deliver as Storm. And that's all I have to say about that. Alright, that's it for Comically Speaking. Now let's get to the comics I bought this week.
Comic books I bought this week.
All right, first up is Force Works 2020 number 1. Force Works 2020 number 2. Now, I have to say something about this variant cover, folks. Remember the Iron Man cartoon that came out in 1994? Where they had this lineup of Force Works. Now, Force Works is pretty much Avengers West Coast. I mean, you have just about all the characters that are on this cover were also part of that comic book back then, and also the Iron Man series that took place back then as well. Love it. All right, next up is Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen. Now, this is a trade paperback, and it collects the Year of the Villain special and Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen numbers 1 through 4. Now, I already have the Year of the Villain special, so I'm counting the 4 books that are in here. And then finally, and this is the reason why I'm wearing a Robin Comic Hero tee, the Robin 80th Anniversary Spectacular. All right, that's 7, which brings the total number of comics that I've bought since December of 1997 to 10,056. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Here's a question again for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. True or false? Fans voted to kill off the Jason Todd Robin in the classic Batman story arc, A Death in the Family, in 1988. Everyone who answers correctly been entered in the drawing for a free tee on next week's episode of the show. And congratulations to Metarog from YouTube, who won a free tee on this week's episode. All right, I hope y'all are enjoying the Summer of Superheroes. We've kind of hit the halfway point. And next week, I'm going to wear a Storm Comic Hero tee. Now, Storm is one of the most popular X-Men characters of all time. One of the most popular comic book characters of all time. And she made her debut in John Size X-Men number 1 in 1975. Loved this character. At one point, she was even married to Black Panther. And in the comics, they've somewhat reconciled. Now, I don't know if that's going to lead to them remarrying or not, but I'll keep y'all in the loop if something develops out of this reconciliation. All right, I hope y'all are continuing to stay safe during this pandemic. I mean, I looked at the numbers a few days ago, 3 million cases worldwide. And then over 130,000 deaths worldwide. Folks, this is nothing. This is absolutely nothing to take lightly. I mean, there's some people that think it's fake. There's some people that, when you mention the word social distancing, that's a violation of their rights. We're not talking about rights. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about people's lives. I mean, this is very serious, folks. I mean, and I've said it many times, and I'll say it again. If you're uncomfortable with going anywhere, stay at home. If you do go out, wear a mask and keep your distance from people. It's not that hard. And for all you people who think it's fake, shame on you. If this was fake, then we wouldn't have this many people testing positive. We wouldn't have this many people. We wouldn't have anyone dying. I'm just saying. I mean, this is very serious. I mean, not enough people are taking this seriously enough. I mean, I've seen something that's very stupid with all these folks going to COVID-19 parties to see who would test positive for it. That's pretty much like delayed suicide. We can't have that. Be smart. All right, and also beginning, and I mentioned this in a Comic Week Speaking segment on an earlier episode. Beginning next week is Free Comic Book Summer. Now, due to the pandemic, Free Comic Book Day was canceled at all comic book stores. But the folks over at Free Comic Book Day want to go ahead and give away the free books, but want to do so all the way from July 15th through September 9th. So if you go to a comic book store, go ahead and get you some free books. I'm going to do the same thing. As a matter of fact, beginning in episode 320, those books will be featured. All right, I'm Victor Nunley on the Comic Hero. I'll see you next week for episode 319. So until then, be safe, be blessed, be a hero.